Hello friends, welcome to Coding Garden with CJ. Welcome to 101 ways to deploy a React website. Let's say hello to all the people in the chat. Hello Rabbitworks, welcome to the stream. Hello George or Jorge, welcome, welcome. Hello Jacob Code. Andrew Lane, what's up? Not much. Hello Pranjal. Hello Raul. Hello Miner, welcome to the stream. So, I've talked about doing this in the past, but the point of today's stream is I will build a React app that has multiple pages, and then I will deploy it to the internet to all the different places where you can do that. So I'm going to deploy it to Netlify drop, Surge.sh, now.sh, GitHub pages, Netlify, GitHub deploy, Firebase, and FTP hosts, Heroku, and AWS S3. I'm going to do all of them in the same stream. It's going to be a fun time. But we will start with building like a basic React app. And then I'll kind of talk about deployment concepts, but I kind of want to have the app first before I talk about the concepts. Because a lot of the things that I want to talk about, like building front-end files or client-side routing, we should probably do first, and then I can talk about how that works with deployment. Let's say hello to more people that have joined. Hello, Gene. Welcome to the stream. Hello, Josh. Hello, Ben. Hello, Winkle. Welcome, welcome. Hello, Mad Duchess. And hello, Elia. Rabbitworks says, excellent, perfect timing. Yeah, and I guess as I do this, you all who are watching at home can throw in the chat what is your preferred method, or if you've been trying to deploy with these various things and you have questions about it, feel free to throw that in the chat. I am also going to attempt to set up a custom domain on all of the services that allow it, and I'm going to attempt to set up SSL for all the services that allow it as well. A lot of times it's like automatic and free. But yeah, this is going to be fun. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the stream. Let's get right into it. I want to create a React app that uses React Router and has multiple pages. So we're going to add React Router DOM. We'll just have like a home page, an about page, and then just show like a random GIF. The main idea, a front-end website that has multiple pages. It's not going to connect to an API of our own or anything like that. We're not deploying APIs in this episode. We're just deploying front-end websites. And pretty much everything that I talk about here will apply to other front-end frameworks or even other static websites. I'm just going to use React here because it's popular and lots of people use it. Cool. So in this directory, I'm going to create a React app. We'll do npx create React app. Let's call it 101 ways. And hello, Carlos from Colombia. That's awesome. Andrew Lane says, your API key is in the README. I know this. I actually found that API key in like a code pin. I think it might be their publicly available one. It's not mine. Hello, Solomon. Welcome to the stream. Gaming but not really. Welcome, welcome. And James Ross. I heart you too. It's been a while. Welcome back. Okay, so we generated an app. We have this 101 ways directory. We can go in there and we should be able to just yarn start. I think it auto-detected that I have yarn installed, so it automatically did a yarn install. Hello, Wally Oxen. Welcome. Cool, and we have a basic React app. Awesome. So now I actually want to set up routing, and let's just look and see what we got. So we have this folder, it's got all the stuff. Our source directory has our components in it. Our app.js has the spinning logo in the text and all that good stuff. I guess initially let's just rip all of this out so it's just super basic. We'll just have like an each one. What's happening? Okay, hello world. Let's get rid of that logo. Logo goes by. And it's bringing in app.css. Let's just get rid of all the default styles. And in index.css, we've got 0 margin and padding on the body, like a default font. And then that code thing, we don't need that. We'll leave the body one. It should be good. Let's see what we get. It's now a basic app that says hello world. Cool. Adam is asking, can you include how to deploy on Nginx? I did not plan to do that. So of all the things that I'm deploying with, these are what are known as like platform as a service, or in this case, this is like infrastructure as a service. It's doing a lot of the dirty work for you. It would be good to, in a future stream, to show how to deploy to like your own server running Nginx and stuff like that. But today I won't be doing that, mainly because I'm just using these services. And the first few are going to be really easy. The later ones have a lot more configuration involved. So things like, I guess Heroku's not too bad, but because we're deploying a React site, it's a little bit different. And then AWS is just a monster. But that could definitely be an idea for the future. Amy, hello Amy, says, wow, hi, what a great stream idea. Thank you. You're very welcome. Awesome. Okay, so we have the React app. I now want to add some routes. So let's add React router DOM. Router DOM. I believe the website is React Training. Let's go to the package on npm. And do they link to their website? Yes, they do. Learn React Router. Cool. Wait, no. Where's the router? Home. That's not it. React Router Training. ReactTraining.com? That's the one I just clicked on. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to Google. Wait. Is there... I don't want a workshop. I just want to learn about React Router. GitHub. This is it. Here we go. Okay. I don't know why it was so hard to get there, but what we want is React Router Web, because we are on the web. That's what we're going to use. So at this point, we have created a React app. Now we want to install React Router DOM so that we can get some routing. So I'm using Yarn, so I'm going to use that instead. But I'm currently in the directory that has my React app, and I'll just do yarn add React Router DOM. Go. Cool. Basic routing. So in our component, we have this router that has links and routes in it. I'll probably set up a switch, but let's go. So the basic layout that I want is we're going to have a home page that links to all the other pages. We'll just have an about page, and then we'll have a page that shows a random GIF from the Jiffy API. Cool. Andrew Lane is asking about the React setup here. I don't like that the components are in the source folder. Why isn't there a components folder? You are free to add whatever folders you want in here. I think the main thing is they set this up initially to be super basic, but at work, I'm working on an app that has hundreds of components, and it was based on a Create React app, but we built it all out. We have our components directory, our lib directory. The components directory has like 20 directories inside of it. Those directories have directories in them. So you can set it up however you want, but by default, it doesn't have that. Hello, Zilu. Made it finally. Welcome to the stream. Hello, Nathan. Okay, so we want some basic pages. Let's say, I guess we'll just have some links here. Let's set up the, got a super chat from Amadou Diallo. Thanks for what you're doing. Keep it up. Appreciate that. Thanks so much. And Gaming But Not Really is asking, can someone explain to me in the simplest what React is? Why not start there? So React is a way of building front-end applications, and the main idea with React is breaking things into components. So by default, we have this thing called the app component. And as you saw on the page, right now, all we get is this hello world. So basically, I created this component. It returns what looks like HTML. This is actually something called JSX because it's HTML inside of our JavaScript. But basically, we have this app component, and it does this thing. It's very simple. I'm not really using any of the other features of React because React allows you to have state, which can have data in it that maybe a user interacts with the page and the data changes, or that data comes from an API, and then you can dynamically load it into your component. And right now we have just one basic component, but what I'm going to do is build a component for each page, and then we'll link to those components from this page, and it's just a way of linking it all together. One thing that we're not going to have to touch, but the way all of this is working is if we look in index.js, you'll see right here it imports that app component that I was just showing you, and then on this line it says React DOM.render. It gives it the app component, and then it tells it wants to put it on the page. And this is just regular plain old DOM manipulation, get element by ID root. So it basically takes our React app and puts it into the page on the element with ID root. And if we look in the public folder and end index, there's a div with ID root. So it's going to put our React app right there. All of that is pretty much hidden from us. We don't have to worry about it right now. But the main idea is we can build these components, they can use data, and they can interact with each other. And people prefer this nowadays versus just writing everything from scratch in JavaScript or using jQuery, different things like that. Hello, Kaizen. Welcome to the stream. So let's set up some links. I think I want this to just to say, welcome to 101 ways. And then we'll just have some links below it. Let's throw in like a section. I guess we'll use like H3s. Let's say about page, random GIF. Let's also add like a little small right here. Click the links below. All right, let's see what this gives us. Cool, we get this. Let's just do some basic styling. So this thing already has a class called app with a capital A. So let's add that class. And let's just say that this has a width of 100%. Let's do text align center. Let's see what we get. There we go. It's a super basic web page. I think that's about all the styling that I'm going to do. Let's increase the font size. Let's say font size is 2Ms. Bigger. Cool. I like that. Okay, now what we'll do is when we click the About page, it'll go to the About page and we'll show more info on that. And then also random GIF. So first, let's create a component for the About page. So in source, we'll create a new file. To what Andrew Lane was talking about before, we could create a folder for components. Let's do that. Let's create a folder. Let's actually call this views. Because these are going to be the main components at the root of each view. We could literally call it anything we want, but that's what I'm going to call it. And then I'll create a component called about.js. I will create a component. So to create a component, you import React, you import component, and then you export a class that extends component. But the main thing your class needs is this render function. And here I'll just throw an h1 and say, this is the About page. Just for now. We'll add some more content later. So in our app.js, when I click this link right here, I want it to load the About page in here. And let's say this, like this section right here is where my pages will get loaded into. So for that, let's create a separate component that's just called like links. And when the page first loads, we'll show the links component right there. But then when we click on different links, it'll load other components into there. Cool. So let's create a new component in here. Let's just call this links.js. And it's going to be also a very simple component. And if we look at our app.js, we basically just want to take this right here, and we're going to put that in the links component. Like that. Okay, super simple. But now, if we want to show this component inside of our app component, we can import it in. So right about here, I'll say import links from views/links. So now we have access to that component in our main component. And then right below here, we'll just throw the links component. And that should work exactly the same way. Failed to compile. Can't resolve. Let's make sure I did this right. So we're in the source directory. We go into views and we grab the links component. It's exporting that component. That looks good. This looks good. Why is this complaining? Let's catch up on the chat while that's happening. Yeah, it worked. I don't know why that didn't work instantly, but cool. Tony asked a side question. Am I using OBS? Yes, I am. I'm using Open Broadcast Studio to make this happen. Andrew saying I should add jQuery just to get the root element. I don't think I'll do that. Amy's asking, I missed the first couple of minutes. How many ways are there actually? That's one thing that I guess I didn't allude to. I'm not really going to be showing 101 ways, but we're going to be showing a lot. We're going to show Netlify, Surge, now GitHub pages, a different kind of Netlify, Firebase, FTP, Heroku, and AWS. So that's 9 different ways to deploy. Yeah. Amato is asking, what's the main difference between React and Vue? At their core, they work in the very same way. The main difference is how you specify your components. So React has this stuff called JSX, where you have basically HTML inside your JavaScript. Vue has this thing called single file components, where you have your HTML, your JavaScript, and your CSS all in one file, but still somewhat separate. Another thing is Vue uses... it calls it reactive data. So in Vue, if you want to update your state, you simply just change the properties. There's no special set state or anything like that. Vue knows when anything changes. In React, you have to use something called set state, and you're not supposed to mutate state. In Vue, you mutate state all day long. Those are the main differences. Cool. Still catching up. Bmax, okay, I changed my name so it's easier to say, and it's the same Discord. Awesome. Hype, I made it to live. Yes, you did. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, and so there's some chat about like the differences between Vue and React, all that good stuff. Sahirazal says, thank you, CJ. I learned a lot from you. Cheers from Indonesia. Cheers. Thanks for tuning in. Cool. And Evball says, I'm starting computer classes soon. Awesome. You can learn some React and websites and stuff like that. Okay. So that worked. I don't know why I had to restart the React app, but basically what I did was I took that simple little stuff, put it in its own component, and now I can bring it into app.js, and it shows the component on the page there. Great. But now what I want to do is set up some routing. And instead of just directly having this links component right there, I'm going to use React Router to specify when the URL is / show the links. When the URL is / about, show the about component. When it is / random GIF, show the other component. So for that, we need to set up React Router. This doesn't have it in basic components, but I want to use something called a switch. Yeah. So a switch works the same way as a switch does in JavaScript programming, but it basically switches on the path. So here's what I will do. In app.js, I'm going to import switch from React Router DOM. And right here where I have links, this is where I want to swap out the components. So this is where I will add the switch component. And then inside of switch, I will have what are called routes. So let's have route, and we'll have to bring in route from React Router DOM as well. And then inside the switch, I'll say, okay, I want a route. And when the path is /, so when the URL is /, load the links component. The other thing I'm going to add here is exact, because I want it to be when the URL is exactly / load the links component. But when the URL is anything else, we'll load something else. So now you should not use switch outside a router. We actually need to set this up inside of our app. I totally forgot about that, but we can see how they do it right here. So you'll notice that they wrap the app inside of the browser router component. So we will do that. I believe there is like a history router. Is that a thing? I think that is browser router, yeah. So we'll use browser router. And in our index.js, where it's loading in the app, this is where I'll use it. I technically could, in app.js, wrap this whole thing in browser router, but I'm going to do it up at the root level here. So let's import browser router from React router DOM. And then I need to wrap this in a browser router. So I'll have browser router, not that, like that, and throw app in it like that. Cool. Let's see if it likes it. It likes it. And you'll notice by default the URL is /, and so it loaded links. But if I go to something else, it doesn't show anything because I don't have anything set up for that. Now, one thing I'll do is this text, I'm going to move this into the links component because I only want that to show whenever the links page is open. So let's throw it right there. Cool. So when I'm on some random URL, we don't see anything, but when I'm on /, we see the links component. That's great. While we're here, let's go ahead and set up a component for when something is not found. So like you saw before, if I just did globbledy-gloop, nothing shows, we should probably show like a not found message. So in our views, let's create a new file. Let's call it not found. Create a basic component. And we'll just throw an h1 in here. And we'll do an h2, not found. And then we'll add that as a route in our switch here. So we'll import not found. And I will say the app I'm building here is super basic. Like I don't really need React for this, but I do want to show how to deploy this thing because regardless of the complexity of your app, these same steps can be followed. Just want to put that out there. So let's add another route. And for this, I'm just going to say the path is anything. So if the path matches anything, we're going to set our component to be the not found component. So now, whenever we see this stuff, we see not found, but if we're on /, we see links. It's a good sign. Let's give this some color. Let's just give this like a class name of error, and we'll make that red. So if we go to our component, let's put this in index.css. Let's say the error class has a color of red. And now if we go somewhere that's not found, it shows up as red. That's cool. I like it. I'm going to get rid of this extra exclamation point. Oh, you know what? I totally missed the opportunity to use an emoji. Oh no, it's 100. 100 plus 1 ways. There we go. Let me catch up on the chat. Hello, Tracy Codes. Welcome to the stream. Hello, Joshua Ferris. Howdy, howdy. Cool. Aditya, hello. Welcome to the stream. BMax asked a question, is the React router different from the Express router? If so, how is it different? I would say it's similar in that they work similar ways, but they are very different because they're running in two very different places. So the React router is actually running inside of the browser. So when a person visits your website, it downloads all the JavaScript and CSS and HTML and all that good stuff. But all of the information about your client-side React routes are in that payload of all the JavaScript. So information about like what's at /about, what's at /random_gif, all of that is loaded into the user's browser. With something like express routing, all of that is handled on the back end. So when you make a request to the server then decides which route will serve up that request. So the difference is React router is running inside the user's browser and express router is running on some remote server. But concepts are similar in that you can match a specific path or specific path to a specific, in React, specific component, but in Express, you map it to a specific request handler. Cool. Evball is asking, are you making an app, game, picture, animation? I'm just building a basic web page so that I can show you how to deploy it. Logan says, love the streams, thanks. Hello, JT. Welcome to the stream. JT is asking about a 404 error. So right now, the error code itself is not 404, but I'm going to show in all of these different deployment strategies how you set it up so that if someone tries to go somewhere that would end up in a 404, they end up getting served your app, which would then serve the not found component. But we'll definitely get there. HypeRocket says, why do you call your folder views instead of components? Mainly because these are top-level views. You can literally call these folders anything you want, but in this case, these are the components that get loaded in as routes, and if those components used other components, I might put them in a components folder, or I might create folders in here called about, and inside about it has the components that it uses. It's totally up to you. You can do it really any way you want. I just decided to do it this way. Cool. Kaizen is asking, when is the last time you used Vue or Nuxt? A long time ago. I've been at work for 3 months now, so I've been coding straight React for 3 months, the past 3 months, and haven't really touched Vue at all. Yeah. And Amado asked a good question. Will these deployment steps work for a Vue app as well? Yes, and that's why I'm doing this. And that's why I'm not using something like vanilla. The one thing that both Vue app and React apps and Ember apps and Angular apps and all these front-end framework apps have in common is that the code that you write can't necessarily run directly inside of the browser. It has to go through a build step so that it can run in the browser. So when I show how to build this app, we're going to be deploying the built version of the app. So these same steps could be applied to Vue, but you just need to build it using whatever steps are outlined for building Vue and then deploy that folder. So it's going to be very similar in that way. Tracy is saying I should use the one emoji. Is that a thing? Oh yeah, there's like a one box one. Yeah, that one. Nice. Hello, David. Welcome to the stream. Hello, Rakshan. Wave. And Ronald says, hello from Myanmar. That's awesome. Thanks for tuning in. BMax is saying, so Express is slower than since it's server-side. I wouldn't necessarily say that. I would just say where things are happening is very different. You could have an extremely fast server on an extremely fast network connection, and it would seem instant to the user. But ultimately, with React, things are happening inside the browser. With Express, things are happening on some remote server somewhere. Cool. Ben Sao is asking, what's the benefit of using a switch and without a switch when using routes? I don't really know, but I prefer to use a switch. I think if you look at the getting started here, I think like the basic example, yeah, because even in the basic example, they don't use a switch. They just have routes. Let's see. It's a good question, though. Like, what's the benefit of using a switch? How is this different than just using a bunch of routes? Switch is unique in that it renders a route exclusively. In contrast, every route that matches location renders inclusively. So here's what that means. If we look in their basic example, if you had paths for all of these routes that matched or were very similar, it could potentially show multiple components on the page, whereas a switch will always only show one component on the page. So that's why I'm using it. Pranjal is asking, will I teach machine learning on YouTube? I don't have any plans for it anytime soon. Check out Coding Train. Tons of awesome content for that. Cool. All right, I have looked at the chat way too much. Let's get this going. So we got the not found route going. We got our slash. Let's create a route for about. So I created this simple, this is the about page component. Let's bring it in here. And then we'll add a route for it. So we will say, when the path is exactly /about, let's load the about component. Great. But now, how do we get there? So I could go there directly. Like if I do /about, that should load the about page. Awesome. Let's use like an H2 because it's not the main content. Yeah, this is the about page. Cool. But what we want is when I click this link, it should load the about page. So here's what we need to do. If we go into our links component, I want this specific thing right here to link to that page. So I'm going to use the link component from React Router DOM. So let's import link from React router DOM. And it works like so. It's very similar to an anchor tag, but it dynamically loads the stuff and has other properties on it. I don't know. We're going to use the link. So basically, I'm going to wrap about page in the link, and it has this prop called to. So where do I want this to go to? I want this to go to /about. And that should be it. So now you'll notice this shows up as a hyperlink, and if I click it, we go to the about page. Great. Let's add a link. Maybe we'll add it to the about page that says go home, or we could add like a home link that's always present on the main page. Let's do that. So in our app.js, like right above the switch, we'll just say go home, and we want that to go to /. We'll need to import link in here as well. And now we can go home, we can go to the about page, we can go back home. Cool, right? I guess last thing is to add the random GIF. So let's create a new component for that. Basic component. And we need to contact an API. So if we look at our README, I have the URL set up. This is basically the Jiffy API, which will return a random GIF that matches the tag funny. So that should be fun. So what we want to do is, when the page loads, get some random GIF. So inside of a React component, you have access to this thing called component did mount. And this function will run when the component is mounted to the page. So basically what we want to do is when the component is mounted, make the API request. So let's do this. We'll make it an async function. We will await fetching that URL. Let's store it in a variable. Let's call this GIF URL. It's going to be equal to that. And then, so we'll get this. This is going to give us back the response. And then we want the JSON from it. So we will await response.json. And for now, let's just log it out. So when the component mounts, we're going to log out some JSON we got back from the API. For now, let's just have an h3 that says random GIF here, ... Cool. And then let's add that route. So if we go back to app.js, we can import in the random GIF component. Random GIF, and we will add a route for it. So in our switch, we'll say, let's say random-GIF, and the component is random GIF. We need to update our links component though, because we want this to link to random GIF. So we'll say link to random-GIF with a slash at the beginning. Cool. So now we have our home page. We can go to the about page. We can go back home. We can go to the random GIF page. And if we look at the console, it made an API request, and there it is. We have all our info about it. So if we look at the response.data. I think I had it in my notes. Image original URL. Yeah, so in our random GIF component, if we log json.data.image original URL, we now get a GIF. And it should be random, so every time this page loads, we get a new one. All right. So now what we want to do is we want to take that image and add it to the page. So we need some state. Basically, when the component first loads, we can say that the URL is, actually we can give it like a loading image URL. So let's say state, and we'll have URL here, and let's actually just grab a loading GIF from Jiffy. Loading. This is nice. Let's use this one. We will embed it, media small. And we'll initially just set it to that URL. So now if we actually want to take the value from state and show it inside of the component, this is kind of like the magic of React. So first, let's grab the URL from state. Just going to do some destructuring to grab URL from this.state. And then instead of showing the h3 right there, let's show an image where the source is that URL. I think it wants an alt tag. Let's just say image, GIF. Cool. And now by default, yes, we see this gigantic image. Let's just give it some styles so it's not too big. In our index.css, let's just say image has a width by default of 50% and a height of auto. Cool. So by default, when this page loads, we'll see this loading thing. But then what we want is whenever the API request comes back, we want to take this URL, put it on state, which will then show the actual GIF on the page. So now that we have it, that's exactly what we can do. So right here, we'll just do this.setState. We'll tell it that we want to set the URL to be that thing that we just got back. And now we should see loading, and then we get a random GIF. Cool. So, and now anytime we go to this page, we should get a new random one. Oh, it's so cute. Cool. Let's catch up on the chat. We have a basic working app now, and this is basically what I wanted to show. So we have our React app. It has routing. Notice the URL is changing. Let's add some info to the About page, just real quick. This is a website to demonstrate deploying to many different services. And then below that, let's just embed the stream that we're watching right now. Because why not? Let me make sure it's muted. Okay. Share. Embed. That's the one I want. Put that iframe right there. Let's see what we get. Cool. So now when you go to the About page, you see the video embedded. Great. Great, great, great. We can still see random GIFs. Our site is working wonderfully. Let's catch up on the chat. Yeah, someone asked, will this stream be a video? Absolutely. So the moment that I'm done streaming, the same URL that you're at right now, you could refresh it and rewatch the whole thing if you wanted to. See you later, Hype Rocket. Have a good night or morning or wherever you are. James is asking, where are we deploying first? We're going to deploy to a service called Netlify, but they have a thing called Netlify drop, where I can literally just take the folder, drop it, and it deploys it for us. So that's going to be cool. Kaduji is asking, is this correct to implement a link inside an H3 tag? It may be against HTML validation. I don't think so, because you can have a header that links somewhere. I think that's okay. Yeah, and then James Ross just asked, so not found equals star should always be last, right? Yes, and actually, so the way this switch works is exactly like a switch statement. So it looks at the current path, and then whichever one matches first, it will show that component. So if the URL does not exactly match any of these, and we get here, it will show not found. Technically, I could leave the path off right here, and because it's always the last one, then we know that that will always load not found. So if I try going to something else, it should still load not found because it's the last one in the switch and nothing else matched. But I like to leave it as path star, so I just like that. I don't know. Kaizen is asking, does link refresh the DOM like an A tag? No, it doesn't, and that is one of the benefits of using client-side routing. So you'll notice if you look at the URL bar, things are changing, right? We see /about, we see slash, we see slash random GIF. But really what's happening is React is dynamically changing just this part of the app right here. So when I go home, it's not a full refresh of the page. It just swaps out what component is being shown there. And if we look at the elements inspector, let's throw it over here. We can see, okay, here's our div ID root, here's the class, here's this section, and watch what happens in the DOM. So if I click the about page, only that, like this section right here is what changes. You'll notice everything else changes, stays the same. So behind the scenes, it's just JavaScript dynamically swapping out what is being displayed in this area right here. Cool. Kaizen's going to bite the bullet and deep dive into React. It's a good learning experience. I mean, especially, I know Kaizen's done a lot of Vue.js, but I feel like doing a lot of React gets you closer to JavaScript. You learn a lot of just more of things about JavaScript itself, which is it's a good thing. It's good to be a better JavaScript developer, but that's one of the reasons I like Vue is because it just hides things and it just works, but you know. BMax is asking, does Vue work the same way with front-end routing? It's very similar. The setup is a little bit different, but it works under the hood in a very similar way. You would use something called Vue Router. Vue Router by default supports like nested routes and has a more, I would like to say, a more elegant way of linking to other components. With React Router, by default, the way you link to another component is by its URL itself. With Vue Router, you can link to by the name of the route. I think there are other React routers that support that, but React Router DOM does not. Cool. See you later, Mad Duchess. Yeah, we're talking about meta. I've embedded the stream in the stream. Ellie is asking, can we have the link to the Jiffy random GIF page? So I'll show you. If you look at their documentation, it's in their API. I'm gonna push this up to GitHub afterwards, but if you do want to take a look now, you can go here to create an API key. But if you look in their docs, there's the random endpoint, and that's the one that I'm hitting. So I'll share that with you. Cool. Oh, and Tony has a good suggestion, which I wanted to do. Let's make the home link hide on the main page. So on the main page, like when we're on home, it still displays this link, right? It doesn't take us anywhere, but we could programmatically hide this thing if we're actually on the home page. Let's do that. I like that. Cool. Christian is asking, is there a default keyword or something similar? There is. So you might have seen these components export default. This is a keyword in like ES 2015 for specifying the default export for a module or a file. So export default, and then you have your thing after it. It doesn't always have to be a class. It could be anything else. Yeah, some people were chatting about why am I doing this as an arrow function. It's mainly so that I think technically I wouldn't have to bind anything because it is component did mount. But the snippets I have installed kind of just do this by default. The other way to write this would be component did mount, and you just define it like a regular old method. Technically, I think this would still work. You have to make it async. Yeah, that still works. But I like arrow functions, so I'm gonna do it the arrow function way. Cool. Yeah, Nino is saying routing will not work on Netlify because it only serves static assets. I have some notes on how to actually set up routing, which is why I wanted to show this, because it is possible to have client-side routing on all of these ways of deploying. Okay, one last thing, what Tony suggested was we will hide this link on the home page. So one thing that I need to do is I need to say if the URL is /, then don't show this h3 right here. I need to get access to the current path. And for that, I think I'll use with router. So with router, you get access to the history object's properties and the closest match. So we get access to match, location, and history, and that would actually allow me to say location.pathname, and I can see what the actual path name is. So let's do this. I will import with router, and then the component that I export, I'm just going to wrap it in this with router, and that now gives me access to this.props.match, this.props.location, this.props.history. So right here, let's just log this.props.location. And we can now see it's an object, and it has this thing called path name. And when I go different places, so see path name is / path name. Well, I have some errors. I'll fix those. Path name is /about. So now in my render function, I can use this to determine if I'm on the home page. So let's do this. Let's say path name is equal to our location, and I only want to show this when the path name is /. So let's just add a conditional rendering here. So we'll say if path name is equal to / well, is not equal to /, then we're going to use a ternary. We'll show this h3. Else, show nothing. So now, what's this complaining about? Emoji should be wrapped. No, I'm not going to do that. But now you'll notice on the home page, we don't see that link. But if we go to another page, we see the home link, right? So I'm accessing the current path to determine whether or not I should show that link. Cool. Christian is saying without capitalization. I don't know if I'm clear on your question, but yes, default without capitalization is a reserved keyword in JavaScript. Yeah. Surge is asking, can we get the API key from the env variable? Not right now, because I don't want the number of requests to get maxed out, but I am going to push this up to GitHub, so if you want to check it out there. It's free to sign up on Jiffy and get a free API key, so you can do that as well. Okay. I think we're there. Oh, Christian is saying, thing of the with router component. Yes, it is without capitalization. And that specifically, if you look at the React Router DOM documentation, that's what they exported as, lowercase with router. This is what's known as a higher order component. Essentially, by exporting our component passed into this function, it then gives us access to these special props, location and match and other things like that. Okay, let's look at my checklist. We created the app, we had the router DOM, we have the home page, the about page, the random GIF page. One thing I want to do is add a hit counter. If you watched, let's just put this one on there for now. Might have to load up a second, but if you watched a couple of streams ago, maybe it was last stream, but I created a one of those hit counters you can embed on a web page that shows you how many visitors have been to the website. I'm just going to add it to the bottom of the page. James is saying deploy. I'm going to deploy. That is the plan. The site may be down. I don't know. Someone was spamming this server earlier with millions. Okay, it's up. Cool. They were spamming it with millions of requests. But regardless, okay, let's add. Let's put it in a section just so it's on its own line. We'll add an image, and the source will be that. For now, we're gonna change it. I think based on where we deploy to, so we can see how many people visit it. Cool. That's gigantic, though. Let's give it a custom style. So we're going to add a counter class. Let's say width is 20%. Height is auto. Okay. So now the counter will always be there. And we can see how many people have been to our website. Great. All right, let's deploy. Oh, Amy's asking, wait, could you say that part about the higher order component? The way to think about this is, so with router, it's just a function. And it's basically a function that takes in a component and renders that component out. So because we are exporting with router invoked with our component, this ultimately is returning a component, but it's returning a component that now has extra props on it. So by doing this, we now get access to, this.props.location. You can see the other things that you get access to. This.props.match, this.props.history. And so those are all things associated with the router. If I got rid of this with router and just exported the app, there would be no prop called location. So essentially by doing this, it's automatically adding extra props that I can get access to. Cool. All right. Yeah, let's deploy this thing. Okay, so we have our React app. That's great. But now let's talk about some of the concepts involved so that we can deploy it. I guess before I do that, let's take just a quick break, quick stretch. I think, is my break timer running? I don't think it is. Yeah, there we go. It wasn't running for some reason. Yeah, Joshua was saying about the hit counter, you could always rate limit it. I added some new code to it that I added a ban table in the database. So if there's one person that's just loading the page way too many times, like I could obviously tell that they were using some sort of script because it wasn't storing a cookie. And it allows me to ban the views from that specific person by IP address. So, yeah. Okay, now on to actually deploying this. I spent an hour building that app. That was way too long. Okay. But first, what is deployment? Now, when you're building a React app locally, you'll notice that it's just being served from localhost port 3000. This is your machine. So this site is running locally on my computer. No one else can get access to this website unless they were on my computer. Or potentially on my home network and they had my local IP address. If I want to make this website available to the world, I need to deploy it. I need to put it on some remote server that is available at some web address so that someone can go to 101ways.website and actually view my site. So deployment is the process of taking this website that I built locally and putting it on the World Wide Web so that other people can view it as well. Now, that's well and good. You probably knew that already, but specifically with something like React or Vue or any other front-end framework, you have to build it. So by default, my browser does not know how to understand JSX. And I think right now it doesn't even know how to understand import without either a feature flag or specifically specifying how those scripts are loaded. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. Also, my browser doesn't know how to import CSS. All of this is handled by something called Webpack, but ultimately my browser by default does not understand these files. So I need to do what's called a build, which will transpile or convert all of these files into something that my browser will actually understand. And this is the same thing that has to be done with a Vue.js app that was built with the CLI tool, or an Ember app, or an Angular app, or the more recent Angular apps. It is possible to build a React website without having to build it, or build a Vue site without having to build it. It just requires a lot more files to be downloaded into the user's browser. So when you're building a website like this, you want to run it through the build process, which creates smallest files as possible and as few as files as possible that the browser actually understands. So in order to deploy this thing, I will first need to build it. And that is the concept of building. I don't think I've done streams on things like Webpack or other stuff like that in the past, but there are various libraries that are used, like Webpack, Parcel, Rollup. I think Broccoli is one. These are libraries that basically allow you to build your front-end assets so that they can be deployed. This is using Create React App and React scripts. It's hiding all of the details, but under the hood, it's actually using something called Webpack. But for us, we don't have to worry about that. All we need to know is that we do need to build these files to be able to deploy them. And then the next thing is we need to upload those built files to some remote server. Now, all of these different services that I'm going to show have their various ways of uploading the files, but ultimately what needs to happen is I need to build this project. I'll get a folder that has all of the built files. Then I need to take those files and put them on some service. And there are various ways of doing that. But ultimately, I need to put them on some remote server. And then the last thing is to configure client-side routing. So, and that's specifically why I set this up with routing. When I go to /about, and if I were to refresh this page and go to /about, typically web servers will look for a folder or a file called /about. But all of this is handled by JavaScript, right? Like, technically, I go here, and then when I click these links, I'm not actually refreshing the page. It's using the browser's history API to dynamically change the URL. So inside the browser, this thing called history, and you can do history.pushState, and you give it data, you give it title, and you could give it some URL. So let's just do like / whatever. If I run this JavaScript, watch the URL. The URL changes, see? So it's possible with JavaScript to change the URL without actually refreshing the page. And that's what React Router is doing. However, when we deploy to a server, we need to tell it how to handle that. So if I'm on the home page and I click about, that'll work just fine. But if I give someone this URL and they go directly to it, we need to tell our server that when it goes to this specific route, it needs to redirect that request back to the home page so that JavaScript can kick in and load the correct component. So this client-side routing that we're doing will need some configuration on all of these various services. So we will set that up. And the first one is Netlify. So Netlify is a really sweet service. They actually have it so you can deploy directly from a GitHub repo. But they'll also have this, which is probably the simplest way of going about this, where you can simply just drop a folder right here and it will deploy it to the internet. So first things first, let's build this thing. So I'm actually just going to copy this into a folder called Netlify. And actually, before I do that, let me fix all these warnings and errors, because I know I did have a few. I know you all are getting antsy. You want to see the deploy, but just a second. Okay, so I think it's on the About page is where I get these errors. Yeah, invalid DOM property frame border. Did you mean frame border? I think I did. This is from when I just copy and pasted the embed code here. Frame border. And then there's also allow full screen is the one I want. Emojis, iframe elements must have a unique title property. Cool. Let's fix the emojis. I don't like seeing all these warnings. So in our homepage, right here, we need a span, not spam, span. Role of image and should have an accessible description. Warnings are gone. Cool. Okay. These are like errors because my ad blocker is blocking YouTube stuffs. But if I load this, cool. Warnings are gone. Okay. Let's deploy this thing. So if you look at the package.json of a React app, it has this script called build. When you run this script, it will take all of these files and build them into as minimum number of files as possible and as small of files as possible. So let's do that. What I wanted to do first was to put it into a new folder for Netlify. So let's do this. I'm going to kill the React server. I'm going to move this 101 ways. Let's just move it to, let's close everything else. To 101 ways starter. So this is like our base one. Okay, so we moved it there. And then let's copy it recursively to 101 ways dash Netlify drop. I basically want to create dash capital R. Oh, sorry. So copy 101 ways starter to 101 ways slash Netlify drop. Now, I could just deploy it all from the same folder, but I want to do like slightly different things for each project. So I am going to basically copy the entire folder for each project, for each place that I deploy to. Okay, so now we have the Netlify drop folder. And actually one thing I did was I set up some custom hit counters earlier. So if we just set this to be /Netlify, I think we'll get a custom hit counter just for that. But let's try running this. So if we go into 101 ways Netlify and just do a yarn start, let's see if it'll work. It might break because I just copied everything. Okay, it worked. Cool. And we see we get this custom counter that only has one count on it because it's specifically for our Netlify deploy. Awesome. Now let's build this thing. So in the folder, 101 ways Netlify drop, I'm going to do yarn run build. When you do yarn run, you have access to various build scripts or various scripts. And if we look in our package JSON, there's start, build, test, eject. We're specifically running the build command. So now, the build folder is ready to deploy. It tells us the files that it created. So basically, it took this source and public folder, all of these files, all of these components, all of the CSS, all of those files, and turned it into just 4 files. There's a few JavaScript files, so these are like our components. Runtime is like the actual JavaScript library. And then it created one CSS file, which has all of our CSS in it. So this is what the build process is doing for us. It's taking all these files and turning it into as small a file as possible and as minimum number of files as possible. So if we look in this build folder, we can see everything is just in there. It also has these map files, which are used for debugging. Technically, we could delete those. I'm not going to worry about that for now. But what we want to deploy is essentially what's in this build server. So one thing you can do locally just to check and see if your deploy is going to work is go into the build folder and then serve it up using some sort of local HTTP server. So I have something installed called Light Server. And if I run Light Server in this folder, it will actually run the app. But this is not create React app. This is Light Server serving up those static files in the build folder. So you'll see Light Server is just running right there. There's another one called HTTP-server. This runs on port 8080. And you can see that it works because we're serving the files that got built in the build folder. HTTP server will actually allow us to demonstrate what's going to happen when we deploy those. So if I go to the About page, watch what happens if I try to go directly to the About page. Page cannot be found. So HTTP server does not know how to route this request. Like it doesn't know that I actually want to go to the home page and then dynamically load that. But we're going to set that up with Netlify. Okay. So we have our build folder. Now, this build folder is ultimately what we want to deploy. So this is going to be the thing that we drag and drop into here to actually deploy it. we can see, I think in my README I had notes on how to automatically set up that redirect, which I'm talking about, which I'm saying is going to give us issues. But basically, we want to do this one. So we're going to create a file that tells it when it receives a request anywhere else, just reroute it back to index so that it can actually load that. So let's copy this. This needs to go in a file called _redirects. And that file actually needs to exist in the build folder. So if I go into the build folder, I need to create a file called _redirects. So in here, let's create a new file. Let's call it _redirects. And we'll put that line right there. And basically what this says is it tells Netlify servers that if it receives a request on /about, it should actually go to the index, which will then load that request. By default, the build folder is ignored from Git because typically you don't want to push those things up to GitHub. So one thing I will do in here is add or remove. Well, one thing I would want to do is make sure that this file is in source control, so that way I don't have to recreate it every time I build the app. But that will be there. And now we're ready to deploy. So I'm just going to open this folder. I have Finder right here. I'm going to go to the website, and I'm going to drag and drop it. Here we go. Site is not been deployed, and we're on the internet. That, for whatever reason, is not loading, but we do have the About page. That's great. Can we get a random GIF? Yes, we can. Let's see why this is complaining. Take a quick stretch. It does not like this counter. Did someone DDoS my server? No, it's still working. You can look at the network requests. Provisional headers shown. Yeah, it does not like this image for some reason. I don't know why, but we are on the internet. So this is sweet. Like, I literally dragged and dropped the folder, and now I can share this URL with you all, and we're on the internet. Here we go. Go there. So Netlify actually does have some settings. So let's go in here. And I think we can even change the site name. So by default, we get like this randomly generated name, but we could change it to be 101ways.netlify.com. Oh, and I think it's actually going to break. So now, yeah, that doesn't work anymore. But now if we go to 101ways.netlify.com, that actually works. Here, I'll share that one. Oh, you know what? It could be that my blocker is blocking it. Yeah. There we go. Cool. So that's awesome. And, yeah. And let's, yeah, so this is the one thing that we wanted to test. So if I go to About, that works. But if I go directly to About, does that work? It does. Refresh? Yeah, that works for me, Josh. I would try it out. Yeah, it should. And that's mainly because of that redirects file that we created. So this file that has this line in here is basically telling it, if we see a request for /about, instantly load that page. Awesome. I think I set up I'm going to set up a custom domain for this. So let's go back. Domain settings. Let's add a custom domain. I actually bought a domain today. Let's do netlify.101ways.website. Verify. So I bought the domain 101ways.website earlier today, and I'm going to try to put all of these deployed websites on a different subdomain. Custom domains, check DNS configuration. So point Netlify's CNAME record to 101ways.netlify.com. I think I have that set up. I'm gonna hide my screen really quick and look at my my DNS settings in my domain provider and make sure I have that set up right. Okay, dashboard, manage. It's loading very slow. Let's try it and see if it just works. Zone editor. .netlify.com. Yeah, so I've added it. It's just not going to be available instantly because DNS takes a little while to propagate. So that's a thing. Elia is saying for some reason the one renders like a square. Yeah, on some computers, if they don't know what emojis those are, they'll just display a square. Cool. Okay, so the custom domain isn't going to work right now because my DNS does need to propagate, but that was extremely simple. Literally, take the folder, drop it, it deploys, we're good to go. Now, if I wanted to redeploy in the future, I would have to, like, let's say I wanted to change the site. So let's say now, yeah, let's say I wanted to remove this one emoji because it does not load for Elia. Let's say I want to load some other one. Let's do that one. Cool. I would have to rebuild this website for it to see that latest change. Yeah, so now I'm using this emoji. If I wanted to deploy this, I would have to rebuild, then redeploy. So if we go to the site as it is right now, it's not going to work. What was it? 101ways.netlify.com. Cool. Right now it has the old emoji. If I wanted to show the new emoji, I need to rebuild and redeploy. So let's just show that process really quick because I would need to do this every time. So we're here. We changed some files. We would need to run a build, yarn build. Then after it's built, we would need to go to the build folder, drag and drop it to redeploy it. Let's double check though. Did it get rid of my redirects file? Yes, it did. So notice anytime it builds, it completely deletes that folder and anything that was inside of it. So that redirects file that I had there is no longer there. So here's what I'm going to do because I don't want to recreate that every time. I'm going to create a custom script. So let's just call this deploy.sh. And I do bang bash bin/bash. So basically, I'm going to write the commands that I want it to do whenever it should deploy. So it should run a yarn build. Okay. After yarn build, it should create that redirects file. So it should cat. Let's find that redirects file again. Readme here. This is what I want. So it should cat this into build/_redirects. I guess that's it. So this isn't really deploying. This is just building because we do need to manually drag and drop it. Let's call this build. build.sh. And if we look at our package.json, build does React scripts build. So here's what we'll do. In here, we'll say, wait. No, I'm going to keep that. Let's create a new script. Let's say build for Netlify. And that is just going to run build.sh. Cool. Before it can run it, I need to give it executable privileges. So I'm going to chmod executable privileges to that build script. And now let's do it. So if I do if I do yarn run build for Netlify, go. I think I did it wrong. It is running. So shebang, yeah. And now I do want to cat. So I guess I could cat this, or I could just copy it. Let's do this. New file. Redirects. It should have this inside of it. Okay, and now we just need to copy it. So let's copy redirects to build/redirects. That should be what we want. Okay, let's try again. Yarn run build for Netlify. Okay, so it's going to do the React scripts build. And it's not there. And then it copies the redirects file in there like I need it to. And now it's ready to deploy. Let's make sure, did I call it the right thing? Yeah, redirects. Cool. So now I can, if I want to redeploy, I need to drag and drop that folder back up. So deploys. I want to deploy. How do I deploy? Deploy settings. Link site to Git. No. General. How do I drag and drop it again? I don't know. Yeah, I could have escaped. I think that was the issue. There were slashes. I could have escaped them. Yeah. We have our deploy. I guess I have to create a new deploy? Site settings? I don't know. Maybe I do. I think it's going to create a new site, though. Let me just search for this. Netlify drop re-upload. Deploying. Manual deploy. Build your site. It's at the bottom of deploy is what they're telling me. Okay, let's go back to the project. We go to this one. We go to deploys. We scroll. Oh, right here. Need to update your site. Drag and drop your site folder right there. Okay, that's what we need to do. So we have our build folder. It's got redirects in it. Here we go. Publish. Okay, so now I'm going to go to this one. Hey, we have the latest website. We have 185 views too. So if you now go to the latest version of the website, you should see this emoji instead of the other emoji. Okay, that took way longer than it should have, but on the scale of easiness, this is probably as easy as it gets. Drag and drop upload, good to go. Now, let's move on to Surge.sh. So Surge is a command line tool that will upload a folder and deploy it to the web. So you install it globally with npm, and then you can just run Surge to deploy that folder. So before we do that, let's copy the folder just like we did with Netlify. So we just have a separate one. Okay, so we are going to copy recursively the starter into a folder called Surge. Okay, so now we have this separate folder for Surge. Let's go in there. Let's just make sure that it runs locally. So if I do a yarn start, you should at least get a basic one here for Surge. Cool. So we've got the site. I am going to update the counter to be for Surge. So if we go into our app, now the counter will be specific to Surge. Cool. Let's deploy it. So I will first need to install Surge globally. You only need to do this once, but once you have it, you have it. So npm install-g Surge. Amy is asking, what am I drinking? I am drinking Pamplemousse LaCroix. It's grapefruit flavored LaCroix. Bubbly water. Okay, so now that I have Surge, I think, do I need to do like Surge login? Maybe I do. I don't know. I think we just run Surge in a directory. We potentially are going to do it on a custom domain. But let's see. My custom domain. Let's see if it works. Okay, so we have Surge installed globally. First, I need to run this thing. So I'm going to do a yarn build. I'm not drinking Surge. It's too late at night to drink that. But I do like Surge. Okay, and now we have... we've built it, but let's make sure it works. So let's, for instance, run HTTP server in this folder, and it still works. Okay, I was about to say, it showed 220 for whatever reason, but sweet. So we know that our static build for Surge is working. That's a great sign. We do want to set it up for dynamic routing as well. So I think I have a note on that. Yeah. So adding a 200 page for client-side routing. Basically, the way Surge works is if you have a file called 200.html, it will actually use that and serve that up instead. But really, our 200.html just needs to be an exact copy of our index.html. So I'm going to do a very similar process as what I did for Netlify. So in here, let's create a build script. Let's say build.sh. Shebang. We'll say yarn build, and then we need to copy build/index.html to build/200.html. And basically their point is if you want some sort of catch-all route that will redirect, it just needs to serve up your entire app. So we're basically just going to have an exact copy of our index, which loads up our app, but we're going to put it at this file called 200.html. Okay, so this will build it, and then it will copy it. So let's give this thing executable privileges. Cool, and then let's add a new build script. So let's say build for Surge, and this just will be /build.sh. Cool. Before I get to that, let me catch up on the chat. I know I have been ignoring quite a bit of it. Cool. A while back, Tracy Codes asks, what do I work on a daily basis? So I worked for a consultancy. We build all sorts of applications, full stack, front end, marketing websites, all kinds of stuff for clients that come in. Sometimes it's large enterprise that need custom internal applications. Sometimes it's startups that are looking for someone to build like the first version of their app. And I specifically, I am My title is lead full stack developer, so as projects come in, I'll either be on the front end or the back end and just doing all the work associated with that project. I'm just getting finished with the project now. For the past 3 months, I was the lead React developer, so just day in, day out, adding new features to this app for a startup that came to our company and asked for us to build them an app. Cool. BMax is asking, what kind of beanie am I wearing? This is a, what do you call it? Obey. Are you familiar with the, like the Shepherd Fairy Obey? Like the, I think it's Andre the Giant face, but I got it at Zoomies. Obey, what's this beanie? Yeah, it's this brand. Yeah, that's it. That's the one. That's what I'm wearing. Cool. Yeah, James had it close enough. It's a hipster Pokemon ball beanie. Yeah, Andrew corrected me. It's shebang. Bash bang. Bash exclamation mark. Andrew's asking, why not just run build.sh? Mainly because with JavaScript projects, it's typical to have all the things you run like in your scripts. So I don't have to remember that the name of the file. I just say yarn run build for Surge. Yeah. Sai is saying deploy with Docker. I'm not going to do that specifically for this one, and mainly because it's a front-end website. It is possible to do, and it would actually be very similar with how I'm going to deploy this for Heroku. But for the most part, this should really be deployed on more of like static services. Cool. Cool. All right. Did I run that command? No. Okay. So I added this command build for Surge, and now let's run it. So yarn run build for Surge. Cool. And if we look in the build folder, it should have, yeah, so it copied index.html into this file called 200.html. So that should be all we need. And now for Surge, you run the command from the folder you want to deploy. So let's go into the build folder, and then I'll run Surge. Let's just do --domain 101 ways.surge.sh. Go. I need to log in. Okay, let me hide my screen, and I'll log in. Okay, cool, it works. So I'll just redeploy it again so you can see the process. So basically, I'm in the build folder. I run Surge. --domain allows you to specify your subdomain. If you don't do that, it'll just give you a random one, but I wanted mine to be 101 ways. And then when you hit enter, it'll verify like this is where you want to build. It'll tell you what you're logged in as. If you hit enter, it will then deploy that folder, and then it gives you the URL. So that works. I can go to the about page. That's great. I can go to the random, oh my goodness. I can go to the random GIF page. And that works wonders. I'll see you later, Amy. Thanks for tuning in. Here is the link if anyone wants to click it. But yeah, that's Surge. And it does work for custom URLs, right? So like if I go to /globbledygloop, I do get the not found page. And if I go to the about page and do a hard refresh, or if I just try to go directly to the about page, it still loads. And that's because of that 200.html file that we created. Awesome. Let's actually see, can I deploy this? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So those, the rating on the GIFs that I'm getting are PG-13. That was not a PG-13 GIF. Let's see if this will work. I set up a subdomain earlier, surge.101ways.website. Does it work? Nice! Cool, I have a custom domain too. So check that out. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for Surge. The main thing there was adding the the 200 file so that it will still load links. One thing you can do is if you want to put your custom subdomain, if you always want it to be that custom subdomain, you can put in a file called cname, and that way you won't have to specify that on the command line. So let's actually do this. And let's create a deploy script. Yeah, so let's actually rename this instead of build. Let's just call this deploy, because I think we can do it all through the command line. So we do yarn run build. We copy build index into build 200 HTML. We'll need to echo. Oh, I think that's what earlier I was using cat instead of echo. So we need to echo, let's say 101 ways.surge.sh into a file that's in build/cname. We'll cd into the build folder, and then we'll run Surge. I wonder if I can specify, like, don't verify the folder, just go. Let's see. Add, remove, version, plan. Oh, let's see. So basically, all in one go, this will build it, copy the file, add the cname file, go into the build folder, and then run Surge. While I do this. And then in our package.json, let's just change this to deploy. Okay, here we go. Yarn run deploy. Recreates the build folder, creates the 200. Yeah, the only issue here is when Surge pops up, I do have to click enter to verify that. But it has now redeployed. Awesome. So anytime I want to redeploy, I can just run that command, and it will build it, add the cname, add the 200 file, and push it up to the internet. Way to go. Yeah, and that's a good point. Andrew is saying I can cd before I echo. So basically I could do, really I could even do this. So cd build, copy that, create the file, and then Surge. Because this will go into the build folder and then run all of those things, so I don't have to do it relative. That should work. Let's try it again. Yep, yep. Cool. Here, and I'll share the... No, not that. I think I already saved it. Whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah, I do have it set up on the subdomain, but I'm just gonna keep it as the Surge subdomain for now. Cool. And actually, does this work as HTTPS? It does. Yeah, I should share the HTTPS URL. Cool. Okay, that's Surge. Again, very easy. We just had a little bit of setup to get our redirects and something that will always give us the same domain name. Pretty easy. What is next? So we did Surge. Now.sh. So if you watch my streams, you see me using now all the time. But I am going to be using now version 2, which I have not used on the stream yet. So let's get that going. So let me make sure I have it installed globally. I'll also copy the folder over. So I need to copy the 101 ways starter into 101 ways dash now static. because we're going to deploy it 2 different ways with now. We're going to do it the static way, which is very similar to how I was doing it with Netlify and Surge. But then we'll also do it in a way where when we deploy it, now automatically builds it for us. So we don't have to build it locally. We can just push it up and it runs that build script in the cloud. Okay, so let's copy the folder over. Great. And then let's check out the documentation for static. So basically, we're going to want to be deploying the build folder, and we'll need to create this now.json that has all of our information in there. Actually, don't like this one because it is using the HTML minifier. Let me see what these other links were. Yeah, well, now static. Yeah, something like this. So basically, we have to create a file that tells it how to serve the files. And we're going to do that from the build folder. Hey, Anthony, Tony, welcome to the stream. We're showing the many different ways to deploy things to the interwebs now. We're now moving on to now version 2. Let's get it going. So first thing is in here, we need a now.json file. So let's create now.json. I guess also we'll go ahead and update our counter to use the now counter. I actually just created these earlier. That's why that works. So our now JSON file looks like this in a way. Like that. We don't want that. But basically, we're gonna copy this file into the build folder and then deploy the build folder. So we need to tell it that we're using static to serve up index.html. But actually, very similar to all of the others, we need to tell it to basically serve anything that's in that folder, and then also serve not found things and redirect that back to index.html. Let's take a quick stretch. Whew. Yeah, let me look at my notes because I do have some other builds that I've seen. Yeah. So I think what we'll need to do is basically say anything in this folder, serve it up from now static. So pretty much do that. We do need some sort of rule that tells it to do the redirects. I think if we look at the configuration for deploying a React app, we can see how it does that one. Maybe not. Yes. This. We need to specify our routes. So basically, anything that is requested that isn't like our CSS or our JavaScript files or anything else should be redirected back to index.html. So we are going to need a routes configuration. We're going to add that here. And quite possibly we could leave it all the same. Let's build this really quick and then see what are all the things that we need to serve up. So we're going to go into now static, and let's just do a yarn build. Oh, and Joshua Ferris is mentioning I can set up my alias in there as well. I think I'll do that. I need to hurry unless someone might steal it. But if we look in the build folder, we have our service worker. There's that. We have our precat. Yeah. So this is I actually got this from this link for Create React App. It has pretty much everything that we need. Basically, serve up all the stuff that exists, and then whatever is not found should redirect back to index.html. I think that's great. So let's say that can remain as index.html using now static. Or does it need to be star? I think it needs to be star. I don't know. We'll see. I haven't actually done this before. And then let's also check out how do we set up our alias. Configuration, name, alias. Cool. So alias is an array of strings, mydomain.com. So let's do 101 ways.now.sh, and then let's also do now.101 ways.website. Let's see if it works. So we are going to need a build script as well, because after we build it, we need to copy now.json into the build folder and then deploy that. So let's create a new file. Let's call this, we can actually call it deploy.sh, shebang. We'll do a yarn build, and then we'll copy now.json into the build folder. We'll then cd into the build folder, and we'll run now. I think that should do it. Let me install now globally. Just make sure I have the latest version. Okay, and we need to give it execution privileges. And then let's add a script that just runs that file. Yarn run deploy, go. So it builds it. Deploying it, syncing it, aliasing it. Did it alias it? It didn't. Well, I think right now my configuration is messed up. Yeah. But did it do 101 ways? I don't know if that's mine or not, though. Somebody else could have taken that subdomain. Let's see. So when a request comes in for /static, the destination is static / that thing. Let's just double check like what's happening here. So if we look, we are getting the main index.html file. Oh, I need to if I just run now alias. Oh, I need to go into build and then run now alias. Cool. That does it. That's cool. So you don't have to add any arguments. It'll just do it dynamically. And we can actually add that to the deploy script. So run now and then run now alias. It is adding the domain. I think it'll actually generate a certificate as long as my domain is verified and all that good stuff. Oh, I will have to verify it. I'm not going to worry about custom domain names right now. I thought I was going to, but I'm not. Just that one. No. Okay, regardless, that's there. But why is it not working? So if we look at the source, it's trying to request like /static, etc. If we look at our now.json, we have that specified. Oh, I think I need to do like star slash star so it goes into subdirectories. What folders are in here? Really, we just have the static folder. So let's do this. Star uses now slash static, and static slash star uses now static. Star slash star. Let's see if this works. So I can do yarn run deploy. Unexpected token in now. Did I forget a comma? I forgot a comma. Okay, let's try again. Okay, that's a good thing. I think that's the winner. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I just had to specify my what was using now static correctly. So this serves up everything in the directory, and then this makes sure that everything in the subdirectory gets served up as well. I'm curious if I just did star slash star, would it just use everything? Let's try that. So it deletes everything. Yeah, so that deploys everything. That's a lot easier because that's a glob for meaning like everything in the folder. Cool. We can go to the about page. We can go to a random GIF. Okay, it's not that bad. Awesome. Actually, I did want to alias this as static because I'm going to show how to do it with now again, but instead of using now static, we're going to use now build, which actually runs the build script in the cloud. Hello, Pickles. Can't watch long, but just wanted to say you're awesome and my favorite channel. Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in. Cool. So that's great. Let's just do it one more time so it gets a different alias, and then we're going to deploy with now again, but instead of using this static stuff, we'll use the now builder. Doo-doo-doo-doo. Nice. Cool. There's that. Awesome. Okay, so that was just regular now. Now we'll use the build version. And basically what that does is instead of having to run the build locally, you push up all of your React files and it actually builds it for you. So we did static. Now let's do static builder. I'm going to copy the file. Hello, Alka. Welcome to the stream. Okay, so I now have a new folder for doing the build version. And they actually have a really good example. It's kind of the one that I just used, but this create React app example, it shows us exactly how to do it. So we already created our React app. We're going to create this now JSON file, and then we'll have to add a build script. So in now build, let's add a new file. We'll call it now.json. Throw this in there. The name we should give it is 101 ways-build. Here we specify the source of the build is our package.json. So it's actually going to look at our package.json for a script called now-build, and that's what it will run. And then it's using now static build, whereas if you look at our last one, it was just using now static. All of those rules are in there, which should set up the redirects and everything else like that. And then the only other thing we have to do is specify this script. So if you look at our package.json, don't need deploy anymore. Oh, no, sorry, I'm in the wrong one. Specifically now build. In this one, we're going to add a script called now-build. It runs build, just like normal, and then it changes the directory from build to dist, or like distribution. I believe that's the default directory that it serves up. If you use the view CLI, it actually builds to a folder called dist by default. So you wouldn't have to do that, but basically it builds it, moves it to changes the name of the directory to dist, and it's ready to go. So just like that, in this folder, 100 ways now build, I think I can just type now. Let's give it an alias though. It'll be very similar to static. And we can actually update our build script. So here's what we'll do. We'll say build it, move it, and, well, no. Will I be able to alias it from here? Let's see. So created that. I created this. Now we can just type now. Okay, so let's create a new script called deploy. And this should be now and now alias when that's done. All right, yarn run deploy. Oh wait, is someone posting screenshots in the Discord? Yeah, so I did have the rating in the API request set to PG-13, but it doesn't seem to be working. I don't know. But this is deploying now, so it's basically, instead of only pushing up the built files, it's going to push up our entire React source code, and it will build it in the cloud or on some remote server or Lambda function. So it'll build it, and then after it's built, it will statically serve the folder that got created. But it's all going to happen for us there. It's working. I just clicked on the GIF that Alka shared. Don't click that. Yeah. The thing is, earlier when I was testing it, like, I got that GIF, so I specifically made sure that I could set the rating, and then that GIF ended up popping up anyways. I think it's like a new, like, popular GIF that's out there. Okay, you'll notice that that took a little bit longer, and it's because it actually had to push up all of our source code, build it, and then it has the deployment. Whereas the way we were doing it was we build it locally and then just push up the statically built files. But we should be able to go there now, and it works. We forgot to change the counter. That's no problem though. Let's change it. So if we go in our app.js, we'll change this to now, and then we'll redeploy. So Simjon in the chat was mentioning that if you want to do now alias, you'll need the CLI option. Because I'm running this locally on my machine, it's just using my local now credentials to allow me to deploy and allow me to set the aliases. If you were setting this to be like continuously deployed on GitHub, or from some other service from GitHub, you would want to set up your now tokens as environment variables, so that way these scripts could be run from like CI servers and things like that. But right now I'm just running them locally, so as long as you're logged in locally, it will work. Actually, I think this is why I don't like this version. It seems to take a lot longer. Like, if you have a decently fast computer and you just build it locally, it actually deploys a lot quicker because it has less files that it needs to upload. But, you know. Nice. Cool, so that works. If we go to the About page, let me do a hard refresh. It still loads the About page, so our redirects are working. That's great. Oh my god! Like, I don't understand. Like, if you look at the URL, we are wait, no, that's the default one. We are specifying rating equals PG-13. Like, let me make sure that I'm doing that right. Does it have to be capital? Maybe that's why. Because I have it as lowercase. Let's do a find and replace. Search everywhere for PG-13, and let's replace it with capital PG-13. Everywhere, please. Replace. Okay. Save it. And let's redeploy it. Let's redeploy all of my apps. So if I go into our first one we did, which was the Netlify drag and drop, do yarn run build for Netlify. Let's go back to Netlify. Yes, gonna go to my apps, sites, Netlify, deploys, right here. Okay, so if we open this up, we have our build folder. It's got the redirects in it. Let's deploy it. This one. I guess that's PG-13. That is not PG-13. Okay. I'm not going to worry about deploying the rest of them because, I mean, is that PG-13? Would they show that in a PG-13 movie? I feel like that's not a thing. Maybe I need to go down to PG. I'm not going to do that, but YouTube, please don't demonetize me. I'm going to actively avoid clicking the GIF link now. Okay, so we did now. What's next? And we did the static builder. That's great. I am going to push all of this up to GitHub. You have links to the stuff that I was following. You'll have all of this code on GitHub so you can see the configuration for the various ways of deploying. But mainly, if you check out their docs, it's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, the next one is GitHub Pages. Let's do it. So I'm wondering, do I want to... I think I do. I think I'll push up this this entire thing to GitHub, but it will serve up one specific directory from it for GitHub Pages, I think. Yeah, I should set... okay, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna set the rating from PG-13 to just PG, parental guidance suggested. Replace all. Let's just build it for Netlify and see if it works. You know what it could be? It could be that it was cached, so I was seeing an older version of it. deploys. Yeah. I'm gonna remove that domain. Yeah. Okay, hard refresh. That's PG. Yes, beautiful. Okay, now we're safe for work again. Oh, he's got Pokemon cards. That's great. Cool. Ambition is saying PG-13 allows for partial nudity and some violence. Psh. JT is saying you should end with GitHub pages, then you can upload all the deploy scripts. What do you mean? I actually, I mean, I've been streaming for 2 hours now, but I do still want to do Firebase, FTP, Heroku, and AWS S3. I guess I could do a part 2. I'm not very good at doing part 2s because I never get around to it. What time is it? It's only 10:30. I'm going to keep going. Okay, let's do GitHub pages. So I did have a link here on how you can do that dynamic serving thing for GitHub pages, and I think this one's based on having the 404 HTML file. That's great. But one thing I want to do is use GitHub pages to serve a specific folder in this app as the thing that is deployed. If you give me just a second, let me double check the counters. If I think I have one for GitHub pages. I just gotta remember what it's called. Yeah. Cool. So let's do this. I'm going to again copy the starter folder into 101 ways GitHub pages. So this will be specific stuff for deploying to GitHub pages. See you later, Elia. Thanks for tuning in. BMax is saying only 10:30. I thought you were in NYC. I'm back in Denver. I've been back in Denver for a few months now, but we're in Mountain Time, so I'm 2 hours behind New York City. Okay, so we have the GitHub pages folder. This is going to be the thing that I want to deploy. I guess let's go ahead and set this up as a Git repo and get things going. I'm wondering, yeah, there's no Git repo there, but does create React app create a Git repository by default? It does. Oh, okay, I don't like that. I basically want to remove these nested Git folders from all of these because I want to deploy this all as one big repo. But yeah. See you later, Christian. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, and Alco is mentioning a new feature. If you click the GIF, it gives you a new random one. We could do that. Okay, but I want to remove all Git folders. I guess I could write a script to do it. Bash remove all folders with name. How to remove all folders with a certain name. So find in the current directory test it first using ls. Yeah, I think that's what I want. To ensure it only removes directories. Yeah, this is what I want. Okay, so if we're in this directory, no. Okay, it's just an ls, so that's fine. Find anything that has the name .git. That is a directory. Oh no, and I want to do. Oh God, did I just delete a bunch of crap? That I did not mean to do that. I want to do an ls first. Yeah, so that finds all the Git directories, and now we can do the rm-rf thing. Cool. Cool, okay. So what I just did there was deleted all of the nested Git repositories. Why is this complaining now? It shouldn't have anything modified in it. No, it's not. Okay, VS Code is just out. Let me close VS Code. But the main thing I was doing there was just removing all of the nested Git repositories because I only want one Git repo that has everything in it. Mainly because I want all this to be in one repo that's on GitHub. Okay, let's git init this main thing. Do a git status. It's going to add all of that. I think each of these nested directories have their corresponding git ignore files, so we should be good there. Add everything. I think that's good. Great, and then let's create a repo. New. There's that. There's that. Dang, Alco with the 42 commits. Cool. Okay, so we're on GitHub now, and we want to set this up for GitHub pages. So I think it's as simple as going into settings, GitHub pages. Okay, so GitHub pages is basically a way of taking the contents in your GitHub repo and serving that up as a website. So let's take a quick stretch. The only tricky thing here is because this is a React website, it needs to be serving the built version of it. We can't just directly serve a React app from a GitHub repo. So we're gonna fix that, but we can tell it what the source is. So we want the source to be what I'm going to say here is the docs folder on the master branch. And basically what we'll do is we will build the React app, move it to a directory called docs, and that's what GitHub pages will serve up. So before we can set that up, we need to do it locally. So let's do this. In here, we're going to have our, basically we need a build script. And the other thing is we need that custom 404 file, which will redirect back to index.html. So let's do this. We'll create a, let's create the script out here because it's going to use the specific folders. So we're going to create a new file. Let's call this build gh pages.sh shebang bin/bash. We need to update the counter to be GitHub pages. Cool. So here's what we'll do. We'll cd into 101 ways GitHub pages. We'll do a yarn build. We'll then we'll cd into the build folder in there. We'll then copy index.html to a file called 404.html, and this is what's going to handle our routes that don't exist. They'll get like redirected. That's great. And then we're going to cd up one directory, cd up again, that puts us at the root, and we're going to move that built folder to the root to a folder called docs. So let's say move that /build to a folder called docs. And that's going to create a folder at the root called docs, which GitHub pages will serve up. Let's double check that it is called docs. Docs, yes. Okay. I think that's what we need. Let's make it happen. So in the root here, let's give executable privileges to that build script. And let's try it. So it's going to build it. Yes, I knew people were going to suggest it. Why not cd ... It would work, but I can update it. But notice what happened. So there is no build folder in there. It created the docs folder. It's all in there, and it created that 404 file, which is a copy of index.html. But yes, I can also do that. Cool. 96 more ways to deploy to go. Yeah, we're almost there. 96 more. That should work in the exact same way. But basically what this has now done is it's created this docs folder, and that's what GitHub Pages will serve up. Great. If we do git status, we have all that we need to add. Let's add it, commit it. Push it up. And then now that we have this docs folder, GitHub Pages should at least recognize that this exists. And now we can tell it that that's what we want to serve up. So if we go into settings, we go into source. Yes, so now we can tell it on the master branch, serve up the docs folder, and save. And now your site is ready to be published here. There isn't a GitHub Pages site here. What? I'm curious if it's going to try to build it because it thinks it's docs. But so Andrew is suggesting removing the docs folder. The only issue with this is the docs folder has to actually exist in the GitHub repo for this to work. So you wouldn't want to remove it. You actually want it to be there, because that's what it's going to use for the deployment. I'm not sure if it has to do anything else. Custom domains allow you to serve your site from a domain other than that. Let's see. Got to publish it. How do I publish it? Wait, your site is published at. Your site is currently being built from the docs folder in the master branch. You know what? I may have misinterpreted this. So if it sees the docs folder, it might want to do something with Jekyll, which I don't have. To publish your site's source files from docs, you must have a master branch, and your repository must have a docs folder in the root of the repository. Not follow the repository naming scheme. Wait, what? GitHub Pages will read everything to publish your site, including the CNAME file from the docs folder. For example, when you edit your custom domain, you have to edit it there. Settings. Yeah, I chose it. It might just take a second to deploy. Oh, that's a good call, Andrew Lane. Andrew was saying remove it before you move the build folder. I think that could break it, possibly. The link should turn green after refreshing. Okay, so let me turn off my style. This link. Some people are saying it might take a while before it's ready. I did read, though, it said your site cannot not follow the repository naming scheme. So it has to use a CNAME? Okay, if that's the case, let me go ahead and just set up a CNAME. Alka is saying they see React app in the tab, but it's all white with errors in the console. So maybe it's loading for you, but it hasn't loaded for me just yet. Let me try it on a different computer. Yeah, I still don't see React app. I'm going to try to set up a custom domain really quick because I think that might be what it needs. So let me hide my screen. Okay, so I need a CNAME file. So my intended domain is ghpages.101ways.website. Whoa. Okay, cool. But I want to add that to the CNAME, so we'll add that here. Remove the docs folder, go in, do all that good stuff, move that to docs, and then echo that into doc/cname. Let's just run that command real quick. That gives us a CNAME, yeah. Okay, let's build it again. Oh, okay. So that is a good call, Alka. Like everything is based on the root. Well, because it's based on the root, if I get this CNAME working, then it should work because it's not going to be a subdirectory. However, if not, then I would actually need to go in and update these links instead of being from the root to be from that subfolder. I could potentially remove the slash, which I think would work in a subfolder. Okay. Regardless, let's push it up to GitHub. Just to have the latest. Yeah, I think everything has to be a relative directory. The only thing is, I would have to do like a find and replace for these because you have manifest, you have these static files. But I think if I can get it working with the subdomain, I won't have to do that because it will be served from the root. Let's see. Okay, so we have our docs there, our CNAME file. Let's try it. Yes! And so the reason I didn't have to update the the paths is because now that I'm using my own custom domain, everything is served from the root. So, yeah. And it works to load the URL directly. Nice. Okay, but if I go directly to a URL, it's actually using that 404, which loads the page that you requested rather than showing a not found. And just to verify, this is using the GHPages counter, so this is the correct deployed website. That's great. Cool. I think I'm okay with that because, like, personally, I didn't really want to use the the GitHub pages URL, this one. Oh. Well, I think it's like codinggarden.github.io / the name of the repo. I didn't really want to do that. And it redirects to my CNAME anyways. Oh well, I'm gonna call that a win for GitHub pages for now. Cool. All right, moving right along. This is a long stream. Let's see how much we have left to go. Okay, so we did now. We just did GitHub pages. Netlify should be pretty easy to set up. I think I might skip Firebase. Oh, that one might actually be pretty easy to. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Take a quick break, but I'm gonna keep going. Okay, so earlier I showed Netlify where you could just drag and drop, but Netlify auto deploy will actually hook up to a GitHub repo, and anytime you push a new commit to that GitHub repo, it'll build it and redeploy the site for you. So let's check that out. Netlify.com. Cool. I think I'm already logged in. Yep. New site from GitHub. Authorized. I'm going to hide my screen just for a second, make sure it doesn't show any private repos or anything like that. Well, maybe we won't do it this way. GitHub is having load issues. Yeah, guess we won't do it this way. I think I do want to do Heroku though. I think here's what I'll do. I'm gonna do Heroku, and then everything else will be for a future episode. Because I know a lot of there are so many people that try to deploy a React app on Heroku and it doesn't work. And I'll show how to do that. But the reason it's at the bottom of the list is because if you're deploying a React website, you should not be deploying it to Heroku. Heroku is meant for dynamic websites, so Node servers, PHP servers, that kind of thing. And a React app is just static files. Now, if it's a server-side rendered React app, that makes perfect sense for Heroku. But when you have just static files, it doesn't really make that much sense to deploy it to Heroku. I'm going to show how to do it, though, but you should shy away from it. All of these other options are way better than doing something like Heroku. Okay, specifically for Heroku, there's this thing called the Create React App Build Pack. And basically, it tells Heroku how it can deploy this React app. And essentially what it's doing is it's creating a tiny little Node.js server that automatically serves up the files and does the rerouting to index if it's a not found file, that kind of thing. So we have already done this. We have... yeah, people are saying, thanks, Microsoft. I mean, GitHub has been down before. I don't know, but GitHub just did start providing free private repos, which is very interesting. And because Microsoft acquired them, I don't know. I'm optimistic. But okay, we have the app. We need to git init it, and I think here's the issue though. For deploying to Heroku, the root needs to be a React app that we're deploying. So I'm going to do this in a separate folder because I don't want to actually I don't want to deploy this folder that I have on GitHub. I just want a separate folder that we're deploying to Heroku. So let's do this. I'm going to go up one directory so I'm not in 101 ways. And I'm going to copy the starter into another directory, which will be a separate GitHub repo. So we'll do 101 ways / the 101 ways starter into a folder called 101 ways Heroku. Okay, we'll open up code in this directory. It's basically just our React app. Plain old package.json, nothing's changed. I think one thing we will do is set the counter to be for Heroku. Okay, but now we're ready to deploy. So we need to do Heroku create. I don't know if I have the Heroku CLI. I don't, so I need to install it. So let's search for the Heroku tool belt. We can get it from brew. Oh, did you just install Node? I don't like that. It's like a peer dependency, but I use Node version manager. I don't like that one bit. Okay. Cool. So now that we have it, I think we'll need to log in. Heroku login. Press any key to open up the browser to log in. Log in. I'm already logged in the browser, so it'll log me in there. Cool. So I'm logged in as my email, and now we can create an app. So Heroku create some app name, and then we're going to use this specific build pack. So let's do Heroku. Oh. Heroku create 101 ways. So we give it a name, and then we tell it that we specifically want to use this create React app build pack. Go. Okay. We'll need to init it as a Git repo. Add everything. And then push it up. So the way Heroku works is it's essentially just another Git remote. And if you push to that Git remote, it deploys your app. So we're going to do git push Heroku master. And whenever we did Heroku create, oh, actually, because I hadn't git initted, it didn't do it. Because if I look at my remotes, yeah, it's not there. I think, is there like a Heroku remote add or something? Did you mean create? No. I messed up. But if we go to the Heroku dashboard, we can see what our Git repo is. Okay, so this is the project that it created. And if I go into settings, I can see that this is the Git URL. So I want to add a remote that is this URL so that I can push to it. So if we do git remote add Heroku, that thing. And if we look at our remotes again, there it is. Now if I do git push Heroku master, let's see what happens. Okay, and so what this does is it pushes up our code, uses that specific React build pack, which tells it how to serve up, build, and then serve up our React app, and we should be good to go. Now we wait. Hopefully it just works. And so we're actually seeing the remote terminal of the Heroku. I don't know if it's a container, but essentially the remote Heroku server that is spun up to run our app. And so we're seeing it install node modules and build the app and all that good stuff. Okay. So build succeeded, detecting framework, writing static.json to support create React app, enabling runtime variables, creating an optimized production build. downloading the build pack. Here we go. I think I'll do a drum roll. Oh, it's done. It's done. And now if we go there, it worked! That's cool. I'm glad that worked on the first try. Are you trying to be funny? No, we're deploying apps. Cool. So that works wonderfully. The other thing to test is if we go directly to a URL, does it correctly rewrite it? And it does. That's awesome. Let's watch me watching me. Cool. So we're on Heroku. That's awesome. I'll share that. There we go. And I have been streaming for 2.5 hours, so I think I'm going to end it there. But this was super fun. Just to do a quick recap of what we did today. And also, if you check out GitHub, I just pushed up the code there, so you can see that. I'm not going to push up the React one because it's so simple, but if you take a look at the README, you can see a link to the... I'll need to commit my README, but you can see a link to the build pack that I'm using, and it shows you exactly how to deploy it. So there is the GitHub repo. But yeah, let's do a quick review. Not this one. Okay, first thing we did was just built a React app. We used React Router to have different routes inside of our app. The main reason we did that is when you're deploying a React app, like the biggest area a lot of people have trouble with is the fact that when you're using clean URLs and you're allowing React Router to use the HTML5 history API, it's a little bit trickier to make sure that the place that you deploy redirects requests back to the home page so that React can kick in and show the correct page. So we set up an app. It had a few pages on it. And then we deployed it. So deploying is taking your built files and putting them on some remote servers so that people on the World Wide Web can access them. And that's exactly what we did. All of these different services work in different ways. Netlify drop was just drag and drop upload of the folder. Surge is a command line tool that just uploads the stuff that's in the current directory. Now requires a little bit more configuration, but you can do things like static serving or allow it to build in the cloud for you. This is somewhat similar to what the build pack for Heroku is doing. The only difference here is that after it's built it's just serving up those static files. When you deploy with Heroku, you actually have a Express server that's serving up your React app, and it will go to sleep. If you're familiar with like the Heroku free plan, you only have a certain number of hours per month, and it will go to sleep after some inactivity. With all of these other services, because they're static builds, meaning it's just static files, though they will not go to sleep. Those apps will just work all the time. Next time, we'll show how to deploy with Netlify. So Netlify has this really cool thing where you can hook it up to a GitHub repo, and then anytime a new commit is pushed to GitHub, it'll automatically redeploy your website. We'll show Firebase, which is from Google, but it's very similar, essentially Firebase hosting. There's some other services offered by Firebase, but specifically they have static hosting. It's similar into probably Surge or Now in that it's a CLI tool. One of the things that's cool about Firebase is they do allow custom domains, and they'll create a free custom certificate for you, so that's cool. One thing we didn't show was just uploading to some FTP server. This is pretty much the way that people used to deploy websites, and if you have bought any sort of shared hosting on like Namecheap or Name.com or GoDaddy or something like that, and you want to host a React website there, you'd have to go through somewhat of a similar process. You could use an FTP app and then essentially just upload the build directory. A lot of services have like an in-browser file manager, and you can kind of just do a drag and drop upload, but I'll show how to do that. And then I'll also show how to do it with Amazon S3. This actually requires quite a bit of configuration, but it is doable. So that was not quite 101 ways. Actually, how many ways did we deploy? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 if you count Heroku. But 101 is 5 in binary, so we did actually show 101 ways to deploy a React website. Thank you so much for watching. I think I might be missing chats. I don't know. I'm not seeing the latest chat here, but let me just double check. Or it could just be that nobody's talking. Nobody cares. No, I'm just kidding. Sweet. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching. This was super fun. Check out the GitHub. I'll push up the latest info with all the links to the stuff I was following. You can see all of the the deploy scripts that I created. I created some pretty basic scripts depending on the service that we were using, which would like create the files that we need so we didn't have to create them manually every time, that kind of thing. Yeah, JT was saying people just ghosted me. I don't know. People are busy doing other things. I've been sitting here talking for 2.5 hours. I can't keep your attention for that long. Cool. I'll push this up. Like I said, thanks for watching. You're all wonderful. Shout outs to all my wonderful people in the chat. Wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night. We'll see you next time. Here's this.